3 days after an arrest warrant was issued, authorities confirmed that they still do not know where Timothy Busfield is, and that is why the U.S. Marshals have now joined the search. According to publicly available information, local police in Albuquerque say they are working alongside federal authorities to locate the actor and director. What makes this case different is not just who is involved, but the long and complicated path that led to this moment, one marked by delayed action, disputed accounts, and a series of decisions that, until now, remained largely outside public view. This video does not jump to conclusions. Instead, it carefully lays out what is known, what is alleged, and what questions remain unanswered, because understanding how this situation unfolded may be just as important as the outcome itself. The starting point is simple and verified. The Albuquerque Police Department confirmed to People that they are actively working with the U.S. Marshals Service to locate and arrest Timothy Busfield after an arrest warrant was issued. When asked whether he had been located or detained, a police spokesperson stated that, at that time, they were not aware of any arrest. In other words, a warrant exists, federal assistance has been requested, and the individual named in the warrant has not yet been publicly confirmed as being in custody. That alone raises questions. But the deeper story is not about a sudden development. It is about a process that reportedly began years earlier and moved through multiple institutions before reaching this point. According to the arrest warrant obtained by People, law enforcement alleges that Timothy Busfield engaged in unlawful sexual conduct involving two 11-year-old twins. The identities of the minors have been withheld, and for ethical and legal reasons this video will not include any graphic detail. One of the minors reportedly told authorities that the alleged conduct began years earlier, when he was significantly younger. These are allegations contained within a legal document, not findings of guilt. At this stage, they represent claims that law enforcement believes warrant an arrest and further legal proceedings. The importance of that distinction cannot be overstated. Allegations are not verdicts, but they do form the basis for why an arrest warrant was issued and why federal agencies are now involved. According to the same warrant, the investigation did not begin recently. Publicly available information indicates that the case traces back to November 2024, when a doctor at the University of New Mexico Hospital reportedly alerted police about possible sexual abuse involving the minors. This initial report set off a chain of evaluations by medical professionals and discussions with law enforcement. The minors' parents later stated that professionals suggested the boys may have been groomed. However, the warrant also indicates that, at that time, the case did not meet the criteria for further action by authorities. This is one of the most critical and controversial points in the timeline. An early report existed, but no immediate legal steps followed. The warrant further states that the children were child actors who allegedly met Busfield while he was working as a director on the FOX series The Cleaning Lady. The show aired from January 2022 until June 2025. According to the parents' account, their sons were involved in the production environment where Busfield was present in a professional capacity. At some point, the parents reportedly consulted an attorney who advised them to take the children to the hospital for evaluation. This aspect of the case adds another layer of public concern. When alleged misconduct intersects with professional settings involving minors, questions naturally arise about oversight, reporting systems, and whether existing safeguards functioned as intended. Based on the warrant's description, authorities later determined that the case did not initially meet acceptance criteria for further action. Months later, in October 2025, the minor's mother reportedly filed a police report and contacted Child Protective Services, stating that both children disclosed that abuse had occurred over a period spanning from late 2022 into 2024. However, the warrant indicates that she was informed that, because certain legal thresholds were not met at the time, no immediate action could be taken. This raises a difficult but essential issue: how institutions evaluate allegations involving minors, what standards must be met for intervention, and whether those standards always serve the best interests of potential victims. During the investigation, according to the warrant, Busfield reportedly told police that the parents were upset because their sons had been replaced by a younger actor who auditioned for the role. This statement, as presented in the warrant, suggests an alternative explanation for the allegations. Shortly after, the warrant states that Busfield received a call from Warner Bros., informing him that the company was investigating a complaint. At this point, The situation reportedly moved beyond private claims and into the realm of formal corporate and law enforcement review. Fast forward to the present moment. An arrest warrant is issued by the Albuquerque Police Department. Law enforcement then requests assistance from the U.S. Marshals Service. A step typically taken when locating an individual may require resources beyond local jurisdiction. Police confirmed publicly that they are actively searching. When asked if Busfield had been found or arrested, the response was simply, "Not that I am aware." That statement, brief, factual, and unresolved, is what has drawn national attention. The case also gained visibility due to Busfield's public profile and personal life. He is married to actress Melissa Gilbert, known for her roles in Little House on the Prairie and other productions. Weeks before the arrest warrant became public, Gilbert shared a reflective social media post discussing issues related to child exploitation in the entertainment industry. Importantly, she did not accuse anyone in that post or reference her husband in any way. Nevertheless, the timing of that post, when viewed alongside later developments, has led many viewers to ask whether there were warning signs, unspoken concerns, or simply a coincidence of public commentary and private legal proceedings. At this stage, several facts can be responsibly stated. An arrest warrant has been issued. Local police confirm they are working with the U.S. Marshals Service. The allegations involve minors, and their identities are protected. The events described in the warrant reportedly span multiple years. No public confirmation has been made that Busfield has been arrested or detained. What is not known is equally important. Authorities have not publicly disclosed his current location. No court proceedings have yet taken place in which evidence is tested. No verdict exists. This means the story is still unfolding. It is a legal process, not a concluded narrative. Beyond the individual case, a broader issue emerges. How can allegations involving minors pass through medical professionals, law enforcement, and child protection systems without immediate resolution? And when cases are later reopened, what does that say about the thresholds used to determine whether action is taken? These are not questions of blame in this video, they are questions of structure, of how institutions decide when something becomes enough to intervene. And this is where the story shifts from a single warrant to a systemic concern. When a local police department asks for assistance from the U.S. Marshals Service, it does not automatically mean that someone is on the run. It means that locating an individual may require resources, jurisdictional reach, or coordination that extends beyond one city or state. According to publicly available information, the Marshals Service often assists in cases where a suspect's location is unknown or uncertain, there is a need to coordinate across state lines, or authorities believe that broader investigative capacity could help ensure an arrest is carried out safely and lawfully. In this case, Albuquerque police confirmed that they are working with the marshals to locate and arrest Busfield. Importantly, no public statement has suggested flight, resistance, or any specific behavior, only that his location has not been confirmed. That distinction matters. The involvement of federal authorities does not determine guilt. It signals that law enforcement is treating the warrant seriously and wants to ensure the process is completed. An arrest warrant is not created casually. Before a judge signs one, law enforcement must present information that establishes probable cause, meaning there is sufficient reason, based on evidence and testimony, to believe that a crime may have occurred and that the person named may be responsible. In this case, the warrant reportedly includes statements from the minors, accounts from their parents, and information from medical and investigative professionals. That does not mean a conviction is guaranteed. It means the threshold for initiating formal legal proceedings has been met. This step moves a case from internal investigation into the judicial system, where evidence can be challenged, reviewed, and tested in court. One of the most difficult parts of this story is understanding why earlier reports did not result in immediate action. According to the warrant, professionals initially suggested that the minors may have been groomed, yet authorities later concluded that the case did not meet their acceptance criteria at the time. There are several reasons this can happen, none of which automatically invalidate the concerns raised. Evidentiary standards. Law enforcement may require specific forms of corroboration before opening a criminal case. Jurisdictional limits. Different agencies handle different aspects of child welfare and criminal investigation. Legal definitions. Certain behaviors, while deeply concerning, may not initially meet the statutory definitions required for charges without additional evidence. This does not mean that a report was ignored. It means it may not have met the legal requirements for prosecution at that moment. However, when new information is later presented, such as additional statements, timelines, or corroborating accounts, a case can be re-evaluated, which appears to have happened here. The warrant indicates that medical professionals at a hospital were among the first to raise concerns. Later, Child Protective Services was also contacted. These systems operate with different mandates. Medical professionals assess health and report suspected harm. Child protection agencies focus on welfare and safety within the family context. Law enforcement determines whether criminal statutes may have been violated. In some situations, a case may move through all three without immediately triggering criminal charges. This can be confusing and painful for families who are seeking clarity and action. The key point is that the current warrant suggests that authorities now believe the legal threshold has been met to proceed. Another dimension of this case involves the entertainment industry itself. According to the warrant, Busfield was contacted by Warner Bros. And informed that a complaint was being investigated. This indicates that the issue was not confined to private reports, it had also entered a corporate review process. Studios and production companies typically conduct internal assessments when allegations arise, especially when minors are involved. These processes can include interviews with relevant parties, reviews of on-set procedures, and consultation with legal counsel. However, internal reviews are not the same as criminal investigations. They may result in employment decisions, policy changes, or further reporting to authorities, but they do not replace the judicial process. What remains unclear to the public is how that corporate review concluded and whether it contributed to the later issuance of the warrant. When a high-profile figure is involved, public reaction often moves faster than the legal process. Headlines may emphasize dramatic elements in arrest warrant, federal involvement, a missing location, while the actual case unfolds slowly through formal procedures. It is essential to separate what is alleged as described in legal documents, what is confirmed, such as the existence of the warrant and the ongoing search, and what is decided, which can only occur in court. At this stage, there has been no trial, no verdict, and no public presentation of evidence tested by defense and prosecution. Any responsible analysis must acknowledge that distinction. Because this case involves minors, ethical limits on public discussion are particularly important. This video avoids naming or identifying the children, repeating explicit claims, or speculating about private details. Responsible coverage means focusing on processes, accountability, and verified facts rather than sensational detail. That approach is not about minimizing seriousness, it is about ensuring that public awareness does not come at the expense of those who are most vulnerable. One of the most significant aspects of this case is its length. According to the warrant, the alleged conduct spans from late 2022 into 2024. Initial reports surfaced in 2024. Further action followed in 2025. The warrant was then issued later. This raises critical questions that extend beyond any single individual. How long does it take for allegations to move from report to warrant? What barriers exist at each stage? And how can systems respond more quickly without compromising due process? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones, especially when cases involve children in complex professional environments. When authorities say they are not aware of a person's current location, it does not automatically imply evasion. It can mean the individual is not at their last known address, they have not yet been contacted since the warrant was issued, or verification of their whereabouts is still in progress. Law enforcement procedures prioritize safe, lawful arrests. This often involves confirming identity, location, and coordination between agencies before any action is taken. In other words, not yet located describes a procedural status, not a conclusion about intent. If and when Busfield is located and arrested, the next steps typically include an initial court appearance, formal reading of charges, consideration of bail or detention, and scheduling of further hearings. Only after these steps will evidence be examined in an adversarial legal setting. That process, rather than public commentary, is where determinations of responsibility are made. Until then, the case remains in a pre-trial phase. When minors work in professional environments, whether in entertainment, sports, or other industries, there are supposed to be multiple layers of protection. These typically include on-set supervision and designated child welfare coordinators, parental or guardian presence, mandatory reporting rules for professionals who suspect harm, and clear pathways for concerns to be escalated to authorities. The existence of these systems often creates a sense of reassurance. But cases like this prompt a difficult question. When safeguards exist on paper, how consistently are they applied in practice? If allegations can circulate through medical professionals, corporate structures, and child protection agencies without immediate resolution, it raises concerns about where breakdowns may occur not in theory, but in real-world application. Public attention naturally focuses on the eventual outcome: arrest, trial, or dismissal. But the process leading up to those moments can be just as important. The timeline described in publicly available documents shows a progression from early concern to institutional review to a formal warrant years later. Each step reflects a decision point. What evidence is sufficient? Who has authority to act? And when does a situation move from welfare assessment to criminal investigation? Understanding these stages does not mean accepting them without question. It means recognizing that justice systems are structured around procedures, and that those procedures deserve scrutiny, especially when vulnerable people are involved. Cases involving public figures tend to unfold under intense scrutiny. Media outlets report on developments. Social platforms amplify speculation. Audiences form opinions long before court proceedings begin. There is a fine line between informing the public about verified developments and creating narratives that may influence perception before facts are fully examined. Responsible reporting avoids definitive language about guilt, respects privacy, and distinguishes between allegation and adjudication. That approach is not about protecting reputations, it is about preserving the integrity of both the legal process and public understanding. This story has drawn attention not only because of who is involved, but because of what it represents. It touches on how institutions respond when concerns are raised about minors, how professional environments balance trust, authority, and oversight, and how long it can take for certain cases to reach the threshold of criminal action. For many viewers, the most unsettling aspect is not just the allegations themselves, but the possibility that warning signs may exist without immediate resolution. That is why this case has become more than a headline. It has become a lens through which broader systemic questions are being asked. Legal documents speak in formal terms: alleged, according to, probable cause. But behind those words are real people navigating uncertainty. There are families seeking clarity, there are professionals bound by rules and reporting standards, and there is a judicial system designed to move carefully, even when the public demands speed. Holding all of that complexity at once is difficult, yet it is essential if we want understanding rather than outrage. At this moment in time, an arrest warrant exists. Authorities have confirmed that federal assistance has been requested. No public confirmation of arrest has been made. The allegations remain untested in court. Everything else, motives, intent, final responsibility, belongs to a process that has not yet unfolded publicly. This is not a story with a concluded ending. It is a developing legal case. What happens next will not be decided by headlines or online debate, but by formal proceedings. If an arrest occurs, the case will enter a new phase 1 where evidence is examined, claims are challenged, and due process takes over. That is where answers about this specific situation will ultimately be determined. But one question will remain larger than any single outcome. When concerns about children move through institutions without immediate resolution, what needs to change so that protection does not depend on time, thresholds, or technicalities? That is the issue this story quietly exposes. In the next video, we will examine how similar cases have been handled in other professional environments, what reforms have been proposed, and whether existing safeguards are truly sufficient or merely procedural. Because understanding the system may be the only way to ensure that future cases are not defined by delay, but by accountability.